Alright, Romeo Hertz here with One Piece chapter 708 review. And I gotta admit, I really enjoyed this chapter. It was kind of short. Um, kind of. I mean, for One Piece, it was kind of short, but as far as manga goes, weekly manga, it was fairly yeah, it's fairly long. Because One Piece has, you know, apart from maybe Hajime no Ippo, it has probably the most content you can fit into a weekly series. So just jump right into it. Luffy, we carry on from when Luffy was pretty much fell into a little trap where he revealed his identity not as Lucy but as Luffy. Um, and Cavendish and Don Chinchao, uh, I mean, man, they want his ass bad. I mean, Don pretty much says that if I had known that Dragon was um, Garp's son, I would have killed him right off the get go. As soon as he was born, I would have killed him. And he has some deep hate against Garp, because Garp was known as the devil back in his time. And Don Jinchao had a bounty of over 500 million back in his old days. Obviously, he's come down a bit, and that's kind of annoying because usually in movies that happens. Z, Shiki, and they lose their power. Like they've lost a lot of power. Um, Whereas in this, Don doesn't seem to have lost that much power. He may not be in his prime, but I'll get to that in a second. But I mean, his bounty's higher than Ace's. I mean, his bounty's higher than the highest known bounty that we know of. I mean, shit. I don't want to even think. I can't wait. I mean, I'm still don't think that Luffy's going to fight in this tournament, or if he does, he might get interrupted. I still don't think that's going to happen because this is One Piece. Crazy shit has known to happen. But Cavendish uses Durandal, and Durandal's an old thing to me. I remember learning about it in history. Um, it's French. It's a French sword. It's a romantic sword. It was a famous sword. It had like different parts made into it, like a saint's tooth, saint's hair. Um, yeah, it was just it had a multitude of different things, really holy things, more like the Vatican and the church kind of stuff. I'm not sure if it was more Protestant or Catholic, but it was definitely of Christian theme. And I think it was mentioned in Roland's story. Sir Roland. Yeah, it was some story about him fighting off like 100,000 Muslims enemies, and he managed to hold them back with just that sword. And the sword is apparently the sharpest sword in the world. Um, um, I think it's also indestructible. Well, in this fight, it pretty much is. I mean, Don Chinchao. Um, oh wait, did I mention it was a romantic weapon, which falls into Cavendish's theme of being a Bishonen romantic. All the women want him. I wonder what happens if I really want now Cavendish to join the Straw Hat crew. I know that's not the thing, but it'd be really interesting to see how Sanji. Oh man, that'd be really cool. Um, but the thing is, Don Chinchao's head. He pulls out the sword. He tries to stab Don Chinchao, who tries to headbutt Cavendish because Cavendish wants first blood on Luffy, and Don Chinchao's head slams into the blade, and they stop each other. Now, it's said that Don Chinchao's headbutt was strong enough to break up an Arctic continent. So I'm guessing a continent made out of ice. Either way, that's crazy power. Now that was in his prime. it's probably come down, but still, the fact that Cavendish could still hold him off for a brief amount of time with just his strength, and the fact that the sword, I don't know if the sword's natural form is bent or if it's straight, kind of like a rapier. I'm not sure if it's rapier shaped or if it's saber shaped, but it still managed to hold up without snapping at all to that kind of power. And I don't know many swords that could do that. And it's really interesting to see a new kind of sword. It might be one of the special swords like what Zoro has, maybe even one of the three I think that Mihawk has, because that's some serious power that sword has. That's pretty phenomenal. But yeah, as I mentioned before, Don Junchao managed to bust an entire Arctic continent with a headbutt. I mean, how do you even like comprehend that? I mean, Whitebeard was crazy enough, but man, and basically Luffy gets involved. Actually, he uses a Gear Second enhanced, not a Gono ability punch, no elastic ability, but it's definitely enhanced with Gear Second, and he punches the back of Don's head, and Don's head pretty much face palms the spectator floor, and it hasn't phased him. He gets right back up. He's like, that was pretty good. That was pretty decent, but you're still way too low. And he's pretty much saying that the wall is much higher than we thought. I thought when Luffy came into the New World, he'd be really high tier, but it seems that. But then saying that to be a good pirate in the New World, you have to be high tier. So I think it's really good that we still see more challenges. I mean, we got a bit of that in the Fishman Island arc when Hordy bit into Luffy, and Luffy said that his training still wasn't strong enough. His haki still wasn't strong enough to resist those kind of attacks, but he said he would have to get better at it. So there's still, it's not like the Straw Hats have reached the end of their development, and that's always great to see. Always great to see characters that have so much more potential to improve, and to see the wall that they have to surpass, unlike Fairy Tail. So basically, Don is essentially about to tear a lot of shit up. His beard is, it's really starting to expand out. He lets out a battle cry because he's about to get really intense, and you could tell that it was going to get crazy. That things were going to get torn apart. But his teammates come in from the same country. They come in and they stop him, because if he's caught fighting, he'll be disqualified, and their main goal is the Mera Mera no Mi, or that's what's implied. It's implied that their main goal is the Mera Mera no Mi, but it might be something different. That might be a ruse for something else. So Luffy escapes during this little. He just jumps out the window, and Cavendish can't see him, and Cavendish wouldn't have cared if he was disqualified or not. As long as he managed to kill Straw Hat Luffy, that was his only concern. He wanted the Mera Mera no Mi, but Luffy was at the height of his priorities, but he managed to kind of escape. And then we move back onto the arena, and Abdullah and G they're taking out cats. I mean, Abdullah is pretty much the guy who draws the attention because he's so powerful, and G kind of slips him behind people and stabs them in the back. So it might be dirty, but they're not Spartans, they're warriors. Um, they're like pirates, you know. I mean, Luffy wouldn't do any differently. He'd do whatever it takes to win. He'd bite people. So Abdul and G aren't doing anything new in the new world. It's just because of the designs of the Colosseum, the Corrida Colosseum. There's a certain level of gladiator-like honor involved. So this is kind of like, but you know, the crowd still gets to see blood, so I don't see that problem. But then Bellamy, oh my, Bellamy just comes in there and pulls out these two knives, stabs them in their feet, jumps over them, puts his hand in each of their upper jaws, and brings them down and snaps their necks on his shoulders, and blood spews out, and it's like, shit, Bellamy. I mean, it's actually very similar to how we first met him back in Mocktown, where he stabs this guy in the arm in the hand because he was basically winning and Bellamy was cheating, and then he pulls out a gun and blows his brains out. But it's still cool to see him not just using just his abilities, but using everything he can as a pirate should. And it's good to see him as ruthless and ferocious as ever. And I can't wait to see who will win when Bartolomeo and Bellamy and the king get involved with one another. But I think that king's going to be taken out. Andagama, I mean, if they're pincered between Bartolomeo and Bellamy, wow. Speaking of Bartolomeo, so Bartolomeo, I mean, Hack, for starters, the fishman, he's taken out cats as well, and every punch, his tile fist, every punch is taking out every contestant with one blow, because it's just that powerful. I mean, you've got to remember that Fisherman Karate can control the blood in someone's body. It's not like blood bending, it's kind of like blood bending to an extent, but controls the water inside their body, so it's going to go for maximum damage. And he was friends with Jinbei, so you know he's going to be up there. But Bartolomeo, he goes to the edge of the Colosseum, and you got to remember there's fighting fish in the water who could jump up at any time, and he goes to the edge, takes off his pants, and takes a piss into the waters, right next to all these fighting fish. His back completely turned against all the other competitors, some really powerful people as well. And Hack comes up behind him and he's like, you know, nothing personal, but a free shot's a free shot. I'm going to take it. And Bartolomeo is feigning like concern. No, please don't hit me. I'm helpless. I'm unarmed. I've got my back to you. You can't do this. And Hack uses a 400 tile punch, Seiken, against him, and as he makes the kind of punch, his hand just snaps. It's like, I don't really know how to explain it. You see him on the floor. It's like he's hit an invisible wall. I'm guessing that's either Bartolomeo's devil fruit, or as Rayleigh explained it might be as Haki, because it can form invisible armor, which is insane. If it is, that's insane. Because when you saw Hack's hand, and you got to remember, Hack is a fisherman. He's 10 times stronger and harder than a normal person, let alone his built-up abilities. And his hand is all broken, and his fingers are all broken and bent in odd ways. And I don't know how to explain it. It's like he tried to punch a mallet or something. Like a mallet was coming towards his hand, and or maybe he used his entire strength against. It's like a human using their entire strength against the pavement, or a 5 meter thick wall, and that's the result. His hand is proper messed up, and Bartolomeo is still taking a leak, and he's like, because man, he's. I gotta admit, I'm starting to become a huge fan of Bartolomeo. I can't wait to see what happens next chapter against him and the rest. If we see that, I just can't wait. Um, so yeah, it was a really, really entertaining chapter of One Piece. Um, not a lot happened. Not a lot of development anyway, but it was entertaining, and I wanted an entertaining chapter. We had a lot of build up, and now it's time to deliver, and Odachi is delivering. So yeah, no further comments on this chapter. I'm starting to really like Cavendish as well. I would really like him to be a Straw Hat. He probably won't. I mean, I think it's a bit too early for a new Straw Hat to appear. Maybe down the line. I think there's just one more member that Luffy wants. But you know, we don't know how long Dressrosa is going to go on for. We don't know what kind of relationships will be built up or anything like that. And yeah, I mean, there's so much more to see. I just can't wait. This arc is really, this is the new world. I said it before and I say it again. This is really shaping up to be the new world standard. If you look at like the Four Seas, the Grand Line, even the movies aren't as badass as what I'm seeing so far. So I can't wait to see more. So that's Romeo Hurts for today. One Piece chapter 708 review. I'll see you guys next week.